Okay, good morning, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Washington Street Collaborative Workgroup meeting on Friday, November 14th at 11 a.m. Thank you very much for joining us today. I want to first just open the meeting, and we don't ever accept the agenda. I keep wondering that. So I think we are good to move forward with the agenda. And we have a quorum, so we're ready to go. The agenda this morning starts with public comment. Is there anybody here who has public comment, either online or in the room? Nobody from the public. Okay, thank you. We don't have any minutes to approve that I saw, and so we can just jump directly into agenda item number 3, the Francis Street Beach Improvement Project. Update on the waterside design from Scape and Pear. Never gonna get
it. Good morning, everyone. Hope you are doing well. I'm just waiting for my teammate Lena to jump on, and I will pull up the presentation while I'm waiting for her. But we're going to have a little bit of an update today on some of the kind of advancements to the geometries and the kind of design of the waterside piece, and then we're going to turn it over to Hazen and Sawyer to talk through their updates on the model runs that they've been doing on the stormwater side for the inland parcels. Just a moment.
And Rachel, just think of golf. It's a par.
Oh, thank you.
No problem.
Because I do realize, I recognize that I spoke to you, I don't know, maybe 2 days ago and asked you the exact same question. How do you pronounce the name of your company? And I still couldn't get it this morning. So thank you, golf.
No worries.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And I see Lena and Kate from my team jumped on. So I will ask if one of you is able to share the presentation.
Yes, I got you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can't park in the winter, can't park in the summer. You? A lot of wasted space, though.
Inefficient parking.
For free.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, Lena. We'll just click ahead. I kind of already touched on the agenda. Okay, so just a refresher on the project schedule. Okay, so we are here in November. We're working through our schematic design. We will be submitting a draft of that in mid-December, and then refining it with a final in January, and then launching into the cost benefit cost analysis and the operations and maintenance of the new year. Yeah, so let's see. If you want to go to the next one, Lena, we'll do a quick design update. Do you want to pick it up from there?
Yeah, I can pick it up from here. Thanks,
Thank
Laura.
you. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of start with a refresher of a few weeks ago of what we heard. So here you'll see on screen just the plan that we showed and some big kind of talking points that came up. One, which was to coordinate with the adjacent neighbor, which we've kind of already scheduled a time to meet with Mr. Wolf. So we'll get that started, as well as having a design that is flexible for the future development. The railings on the project came up just to make sure to reduce the railings where possible, because we really want to have that view along Washington or Francis Street through to the water, as well as include an accessible sidewalk along Washington Street. It was very important to have that kind of accessibility coming from the saltwater marsh. So where we are today, looking at a revised plan, we did greatly kind of simplify the geometry, mostly just from a constructability standpoint, thinking about the bending of the boardwalk and the complexities that come up there. We also did a few things to reduce the guardrail. One was creating a step down condition at that upper northern edge, So therefore we won't have a guardrail and therefore now have this kind of seating edge, which is a nice condition. We're still tweaking a little bit of the ramps, but we do have a ramp access, accessible and ramp access on the beach side as well as on that Washington Street side. We still have that existing restroom structure with the accessible drop-off with the sidewalk that kind of connects both the stair and the ramp access. So to give you all what this looks like, kind of in a 3D perspective, here we have a bird's eye view looking down at this new design. As I mentioned, we're still kind of tweaking that beachside ramp, but ideally that won't have any handrails. And here we are standing on the boardwalk. Again, you can see that step down condition as well as the wooden ramps, or sorry, the wooden benches that will be added here, and then a little edge for a cane detector. And all this will have its kind of native dune planting surrounding it. We also have a view here from Francis Street. So you can see you have that landscape wall, which will be turned into a seating element, and you're still able to have this view out into the water, which is really nice. We'll have to have a guardrail along that walk, that kind of entrance ramp, just for ADA guidelines and fall height guidelines there. Yeah, just kind of going back at the plan, I'll pause here and let you all kind of comment if anyone has any comments, questions, or if Laura or Kate have anything to add about the design. But that's kind of where we are today.
I would just add one nuance thing is that maybe if you click to the prior plan, Lena. So one thing we were discussing last time, you see how on the left side of screen, the way that the boardwalk kind of swings out and starts to go closer to the water. We fine-tuned that a little bit for a couple of reasons. One, to just give a little bit more breathing room and flexibility for potential future connections, just so it's not quite so tight, both with the stair and the edge of the boardwalk up against the neighbor's property. So you get a little bit more dune restoration kind of planted buffer in between that existing fence for the near-term condition. It also better sets up kind of a potential future extension if that's desired, that would be in an alignment that works with the best practices for grading of the dune and alignment of the boardwalk. So if you click forward, you see that left side edge of the boardwalk is sort of still offering flexibility in terms of how an extension could happen, but pulling back a little bit more roadside to stay out of the resource area as much as possible. So yeah, we'll just pause there. That, the next piece is talking more about stormwater. So just pause there. Any thoughts or comments as we advance the design?
The right mix.
What did you say, Nat?
I said, I think we found the right mix, although
Oh.
this next thing looks different than the last one. So what are we doing now? Or is that something else? This picture that you just.
This is just simplifying the roadside edge to be more of a straight line. The reason for that is more constructability. It's going to be easy. We maintain that kind of sinuous curvilinear feeling towards the water side, but it makes it a little bit easier for construction and also for pulling the boardwalk back towards the road as much as we can while still creating that kind of buffered edge. So if you go forward to the images, I think the Francis Street beach view or the Francis Street road view is helpful just to sort of get a sense of what you're seeing. So you'd see the boardwalk kind of floating above that restored dune, and hopefully still, have that view to the horizon and the water beyond. So we're kind of just fine tuning the way these two systems of the dune with its optimal grading and the boardwalk with a nice combination of simplicity, constructability, and that nice curve swoop kind of come together.
It's all warm. It's all done, you know. Clearly.
Are you, well, thank you. I
Sure.
mean, you've made it through the comments phase, apparently. You've survived the comments phase, and apparently everyone is pretty happy with this. And
Okay, cool.
We fixed the bathroom issue,
Yep.
the secret bathroom from 19, whatever year.
It's there, we have it, so.
And I like the connectivity piece and having a way to step down from those spots
Mm-hmm.
is important.
Maybe click back one, Lena, so we can see that kind of
It
view of.
says that in the last slide, right?
Mhm.
Step down. So
Yep.
in other words, where it's gonna end isn't just gonna be like Route 93 in 1975, right?
Exactly,
Yeah, forever.
exactly. It gives you a connection down.
Set of stairs that can be removed if and when the day comes to add more, finish it, or go to the next parcel.
Right.
Okay.
And I think these beachside stairs could remain, you know, we can look at how they aligned on the neighbor's edge, but
Yeah.
I think it's nice in terms of, we were really trying to think about what is the optimal view as you're looking out towards the water. Obviously, you don't want to be facing too much back towards the bulkhead at the kind of neighbor property, but more out towards the water and towards downtown. So I think starting to get there.
Can I ask you? I just thought of something.
Of course.
Okay, I can't remember how it was worded in the previous slide about more benches, less fences, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's good, okay? Having benches in that is better than having just fence and bench, right?
Yeah.
Because the benches are acting kind of as a fence a little bit.
Right.
You want to have as much sitting area as possible. Because that's gonna be what the most important thing is. I mean, if you look at what the land banks piece is like on Easy Street, which is the
Always
mall.
packed. Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it that way, but, you know, but it's true. It is the model of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
But we don't have anywhere like that was ever planned to be that way. It was all stuff that just happened over time, you know?
Right.
That's
Right.
the model that I see is what we're trying to do here with places for people to sit, have their, whatever they're doing, whether it's food, whether it's just taking pictures, whether it's just hanging out, whatever they're doing, reading a book, it doesn't matter. That you need to have that sitting. And I think that's better than just, well, we gotta have a fence, you know, we can't have this, we can't have that, and we don't have a place to sit. We want to have a place to sit more than anything else.
Well, it's a good question, Nat, because right now we're showing something in a sketch in the model of the kind of Easy Street, those chunky wood benches that y'all said you had liked in the past. We have 3 right now. There could be more. I mean, what do we think in terms of the level of seating that we want to accommodate here?
Is ADA playing a role in this? Do you have to have a sort of way to protect people from falling off? That was sort of.
Yes. So you have to have and actually bench or no bench, you have to have a guardrail.
Okay.
If there is a fall greater than is it 32 inches?
30.
30.
Yeah.
Greater than 30 inches. So you'll see the places that we're showing the rail today, like in the very left side of this sketch.
Yep.
That's where, when you kind of get that ramp coming up from the boardwalk over the dune, it's really just that moment of the ramps coming up and down where you start to get a fall height greater than 30 inches. But what we've done in this iteration is really try to minimize that. So everywhere that you see just the kick rail and no guardrail, it's a smaller drop that would not by ADA or any code require a guardrail. So you need the rail on the ramps because they're particularly on the one at the roadside, it's steep enough that code requires it. And then the stair, of course, but trying to minimize it on the water side.
And you've got to have a kick rail so they can't roll off.
Yeah, the kick rail's required. The kick rail's required for less than 30 inches for ADA.
Yeah. So they
The can't roll. Yeah.
And that's the same detail as Easy Street too. It's that little edge. Okay, I mean, we're going to keep advancing this. There's still some, geometry tweaks we're working through and really starting to develop the details. But just wanted to get the latest in front of your eyes today. And before we move over to stormwater, anybody want to add anything else? No, we're good. Okay. Great. Onward.
Onward we go. Woodville
Um,
Group, Hazen, I have your slides here.
Yeah, and I guess it's a question for Ben and Mitch. Would you rather share screen and run the slides from your end, or we have yours pulled in, whatever you prefer?
Before we go to the stormwater.
Oh yeah,
I
of
just-
course.
That today we scheduled a meeting with Chris Wolf, who owns Put In and the Cuddy. Yep, the other one, Cuddy. The adjacent abutter there. And so we'll be meeting with him in about 10 days to see what he's thinking for adaptation and how he could tie in to the project before we, finish this 30% design phase.
And I think he seems really interested, which is great.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Ben and Mitch?
Yeah, I think be easier to just share
Okay.
myself if I can. Let's that working for everybody?
Yes.
Great. So we've been able to get some stormwater modeling done here. I'm sure almost everybody on the call is aware of what we're doing, but just as a high-level overview, here in Washington Street, our main modeling goal is to sort of characterize the extent and depth of street flooding. Look at how the drainage system modifications that we're proposing would impact that flooding. And then look specifically at if rain gardens or similar infrastructure would help alleviate that flooding. And I want to highlight the fact that we're looking at flooding specifically when it rains at high tide. That's the condition under which flooding seems to occur now. And it's also more similar to future conditions where the sea level is higher, and it could be that rain at not high tide would cause flooding as well. We've done a number of scenarios already. Scenario 1 is as the system exists today. Scenario 2 is the same, but with tide gates on the outfalls on Francis and Meter Streets. And then scenario 3, we did 2 versions, but scenario 3 essentially is includes a little bit of stormwater drainage infrastructure and the rain gardens themselves. So we'll see that in a minute here. Our modeling approach, by the way, everybody please feel free to shout out and stop me if you have any questions along the way. Our modeling approach is utilizing industry standard design storms, which are appropriate for this geographic region. And we're modeling only 24-hour storms. We looked at the 1-inch, the 3-inch, and the 5-inch 24-hour storms. Those correspond approximately to a 6-month, 1-year, and 10-year storm, respectively. We also looked at the 2-inch storm, which is sort of like a 9-month return period for the rain garden scenarios, just to sort of dial some things in. And as I mentioned before, we were aligning the peak rainfall intensity. You can see the graph of rainfall intensity for a design storm on the right on the slide, aligned with high tide, which is the worst case scenario. Here we can see what existing conditions looks like for a 1, 3, and 5-inch storm. I want to point out on the legend here that we're not showing flooding under 3 inches in any of these maps. And there's multiple reasons for doing that. One is that by virtue of the method we are performing this modeling, when rain falls on the ground, instantaneously there is a small amount of flooding. So if you didn't sort out some depth, everything would look flooded. And the other reason is that there is some small amount of potential model noise or stochastic error, which we want to remove. But you can see that under present day conditions, there's not a terrible amount of flooding for a 1-inch storm, and there's a little, mostly nuisance flooding that occurs at the intersection of Meter Street and Washington Street. For the 3-inch, which again is approximately a 1-year storm, that flooding gets to be more severe, with some pockets of up to a foot. And the 5-inch storm, the flooding is significantly worse, with some serious traffic impacts, almost definitely. This is that same 1-inch storm, just larger. And we can see Francis Street, Meter Street, Washington Street, all the main streets here are perfectly passable in this condition. 3-inch, not so much. 5-inch, definitely not. This is those same scenarios, but with tide gates on these 2 outfalls, which under these conditions which we modeled, these storms without storm surge, with present day tidal conditions, the tide gates don't seem to have any real effect on flooding. You can see that these results are broadly identical. That, of course, will change with future tidal conditions if the tidal conditions are higher. And again, we can look at them one at a time here and see basically the exact same things. Scenario 3, and again, we have 3.1. 3.1 includes a very comprehensive set of rain gardens in the Saltmarsh Senior Center parking lot. 3.2 includes a much smaller area. We were interested in seeing sort of how much storage would really be required to handle flow from the Saltmarsh Center, which is, relatively speaking, at a very high elevation for this region, and therefore is not particularly prone to flooding itself.
Mitch, didn't you also mention that the Saltmarsh Center parking lot sort of drains in 2 directions, and the area that's outlined on the right side image is the one that contributes to the Francis Street outfall?
Precisely. Yeah, that's also true. A lot of the runoff that would occur in this parking lot is actually going to go north, relatively north. This is not exactly north, but mostly north and east. And you can see that there's some existing drainage infrastructure that heads down Washington Street off to the right on these maps, which is existing. A lot of the flow, which isn't sort of in this southwest corner, is going to end up going to the right. This map. So for the purposes of, I'm skipping ahead a little bit here. For the purposes of modeling the Francis and Meter Street outfalls, there's not an appreciable difference between these 2 rain garden configurations. The way that we modeled these is quite optimistic. We sort of took the best case scenario side slope if you were using earthen slopes and assumed that we put sort of no decorative stones or decorative grading inside of these structures, so they're just prisms. And then using the boring data from Ty and Bond from last year, we took the highest groundwater elevation and used that as the bottom elevation for all of these rain gardens. For the purposes of modeling, we didn't include any infiltration during the storm. That's a common industry practice. Generally speaking, when you have a rain event, the groundwater is also going to be quite high. So we are assuming that during the storm itself, you're not going to get any water leaving these rain gardens into the ground, which is slightly conservative, but standard. If we look at a 1-inch storm, comparing existing conditions on the left to rain gardens on the right, you can see that within these rain gardens, of course, there's more flooding. That's to be expected. That's where we want the water to be. And it is a little difficult to see here, but if you look specifically between Meter Street and Washington Street in this intersection, you can see that there is some reduction in extent, flooding extent. And there appears to be an even larger reduction in flood volume, but to a small extent, which is quite diffuse. This is a hydraulic profile of the Meter Street outfall for the 1-inch storm, comparing sort of the highest elevation of the water within the pipes. The blue line here is the existing conditions with rain gardens. You can see that instead of being actually above the ground surface in some places, it's quite a bit lower. This is actually a great result for the 1-inch storm, and very similar results here on the Francis Street outfall, where it's quite close to the surface in some places, but you get almost half a foot difference in a lot of other places. For the 3-inch storm, similar results where the extent of flooding and the depth of flooding is improved, not to an enormous extent, but it is visually improved, especially at that Meter Street, Washington Street intersection. If you look sort of down here, and a pretty similar result on the 5-inch storm as well. Now, the reason I didn't show profiles for the 3 or 5-inch storm is because the surface flooding is pretty extensive for both of these storms, and there is still an improvement in terms of the hydraulic profile, but it's a lot harder to interpret because there's a lot of overland flooding that can interact that way. And as I was saying before, the smaller Saltmarsh Center rain garden ends up having essentially the same benefit to the rest of the system on Meter and Francis Street. It is, of course, does make some difference further down Washington Street, down on these maps and in these pipes over here. But that was sort of beyond what we were looking at in our modeling. The overall message is basically that these rain gardens, and especially the ones on Francis and Meter Street, have the potential to decrease the depth of flooding and the extent of flooding some during smaller storm events. They have a measurable benefit for larger storm events, but it's not necessarily one that would be appreciable to someone physically there in person. The Saltmarsh Center parking lot rain gardens, having a little bit of storage, especially along Francis Street, looks to be beneficial, but going above that, it doesn't significantly impact Francis and Meter Street. The big limitation for rain gardens in this region is high groundwater conditions. That's what, or you could think about it as low surface ground elevation, either way. But the difference between the groundwater and the ground surface is quite small, and that's the elevation where you can store water. In the future, the Woods Hole Group stormwater or groundwater modeling rather indicates that there will be even less difference between the ground surface and the groundwater elevation. So that would be, that would indicate that you would have a declining benefit to these systems. And theoretically, at some point, they may pond if the groundwater gets too high. But those are our model results.
Question. How does the water get into the storage at the Salt Marsh Center? Does it roll in off the because that's higher? Is it rolling in from the parking lot or?
Correct. The Salt Marsh Center rain gardens are, as you can see, so these points and lines represent manholes, catch basins, and pipes in blue. There's connections for these other two rain gardens into and out of the system. For these, the actual surface elevation is higher than Francis Street. So any water that's coming in here is originally either falling on the roof of one of these buildings or it's falling on the parking lot itself.
I got you.
And
Okay.
running off.
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Mitch, I think I noted in your maps and what you were saying that in some of those larger events, while the extent of flooding might not change that much, the volume was a little bit reduced when you had different levels of rain garden interventions. Do you have any sense of of the flooding that's still going to occur on Washington and Francis? Is there any effect on drainage time for those areas that are not that are going to be flooded in the road?
That's a good question. We looked at that for a number of locations. The outfall pipes themselves are relatively small, and there's not a ton of head, not a lot of pressure moving the water out. It doesn't seem to have a huge impact on duration. Though, in fact, actually the duration of flooding, especially on sort of that corner of Meter and Washington Street where it's the deepest, it's relatively transient. And I think that has mostly to do with the fact that design storms are quite intense. A lot of that rain is happening quite quickly. And part of the flood problem there is just of drainage. That's certainly not all of the problem, but it's part.
What questions do others have? I know this is, a lot of technical info, and happy to also speak to how we're thinking about this in terms of the next steps of design. But we'll just ask for any technical questions first. Anything you want to go back to or understand? Yeah, is that you, Rachel?
Does this sort of square with what you see down there, since you're down there?
I don't want to break everybody's heart, but the rain garden thing's a loser. I showed Matt the water level last week.
They did catch that.
I heard him say it, but it is down that far in the wintertime below the ground. And we dug down there. I spent $200,000 digging the foundation down there, taking the slop out. And Kenny Coffin and all the older guys said, we're gonna be digging up bricks and timbers and everything, and Nat would know that, and we did.
Yeah.
He dug down 8 feet of sand and I filled the lot with crushed stone and built the house on it, so it was on something stable. But there is no capacity to absorb. I showed Matt that in the winter. Anybody wants to see it, I'll show you. Charlie knows that. The best idea I've heard is Charlie saying, tap in the old storage line and pump the stormwater up to the storage beds. That is the best idea I've heard. This is, they waste their money on this. I'm just done. Beach thing's a good idea. This is not a good idea. This, you know.
Do we have, can we have a deduct meter with the state? That's the whole reason of all the II repairs. Because the state charges us or some damn thing, calculates the gallons of rain versus,
No, we have a maximum amount of.
you know what I mean, like,
We're only allowed so much of the
And
sewer.
if
we're
we.
paying to treat that stormwater as
Yeah.
if it was.
Yeah,
sewage.
And we're only allowed.
So we would have to have another place to pump the water,
That's the plan.
other than just, okay.
We don't have to
We
treat
need a
it.
pump station and we don't have
Feasibility study.
Yeah.
anything for that yet.
Did you see 2 winters ago, it really rained a lot? Did you see Marin Away? You know Marin Away?
Yeah.
Next to Concert Springs there?
Cut through.
It was underwater for 2 months. There's no capacity to absorb.
I didn't see that.
And the question I was asking Dwayne also is when they show the Washington Street where the flooding is, that kind of rings true to me, but I'm not down there as much. Like when they're showing these, it's kind of around the corner. That is kind of what I'm seeing.
Nat knows it comes up through the catch basin first.
The cat, so that that's important. Okay, they know this though, I think, Laura.
Yeah,
You-
we,
I
this
feel
is
like we're talking
this is
over
a
each-
shorter term benefit as
Yeah.
the town mobilizes for pumping and a longer term strategy. So it's a question
Right.
of how, where you know, how you want to invest in this, right? But there is some short-term benefit for the smaller storms. And Todd, I see your hand too. You want to chime in on that?
Before he does it, that's
Oh.
not dissimilar to the approach that we're taking from the coastal side too. We're not trying to solve the world of every single major storm.
Yeah. I think just to be, I don't wanna, talk over everyone, but what Dwayne just brought up. Okay, so the catch base, I know we're not on Easy Street, but I have to say this because this is what happens. The catch basin in front of LeMaitre's little store, whatever we're calling it this week, that store changes a lot. That catch basin is where the water comes out. Because the outfall part, when the water gets high enough, the weight of the water, it's just like you could take a clear hose. It's like not really complicated science. You don't have to go to college to figure this out. And the water pushes itself out of that catch basin because it's so low. I don't know how many catch basins on Washington, Francis area that do that. Did you know? Because you are studying this
Meter
stuff.
Street is the first one.
Yeah, so you guys know what ones do it there. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but the Meter Street is the worst.
So we have catch basins in this area that we're discussing that do what the one does on Easy Street and, next to the, whatever. street.
Now, I brought it up
You know what I mean?
before and.
Yeah.
And it was kind of shot down that, what the town wants to do in the short term. Connect these catch basins down Washington Street extension to where that constructed wetland is. But they don't want to make that part of this project.
Yeah, I know. I can see that.
That all redone, it's not functioning.
Oh, yeah,
Construct the wetland,
yeah.
so
But
yeah, we
that's,
can't really plan for that.
Oh, you're talking about the one.
well, we have a
across the-
proposal.
Yeah.
We have.
I know.
So
I
it's-
remember when that happened. That was the greatest.
I don't want to say this is, a done deal, but that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
I mean,
We want to eliminate those two outfalls, Meter Street and the Francis Street.
Yeah.
And connect it so it can be treated before it's discharged into the harbor. And get rid of these low lying catch basins.
So I think the question
Of water.
is whether or not it's worth doing this in the short term, because while that's a great solution, I don't know that that's a short-term project, right? Like, that's not gonna be accomplished in the next year. So the question is, if that's a 5-year project, because you know, it takes me 5 years to find a parking space over here, like it's, everything takes
Not the
5
thing,
years.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
that's
everything
good.
takes
You're
5
right.
years, so let's just assume
But
that's a
I
5-year
I don't
project, is
think
it
we
worth doing
should-
something in the short term?
I mean, the stormwater was studied and that, it looks like that, any kind of gardens or anything, it's not, one way or the other, it's not gonna make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think
I think Todd.
We're kind of good with the stormwater situation until it gets connected, and we brought it down to Washington Street Extension. That's where we're headed. I don't think stormwater is going to be a big issue on this.
Yeah, yeah.
And
In
if
other
we-
words, this isn't gonna affect any of that. is what
No,
they're
and
saying.
if we eliminate
Yeah.
those outfalls, then there's no flooding from the.
Push it back in.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so can we hear from Todd, because he's been
Perfect.
patiently waiting for us to stop talking.
No worries. I have a couple of thoughts, but Mitch, before I mention those thoughts, we're increasing treatment, right? We're providing some water quality treatment with these rain gardens in this attempt.
We haven't done the math on sort of if you were gonna do a normal I'm echoing now.
I think, Mitch, I could take that one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Todd, it's not sort of the design intent of these things, you know, at a conceptual level. There's probably some benefit just because of the increased attention time, but I wouldn't think about water quality as a major benefit of this.
Okay. And the reason why I was asking that is from our permitting side of things, the amount of impacts we're doing to resource areas and other things with the boardwalk and the sidewalk improvements and those things in the dune, having some offsetting benefit of water quality improvements, or, you know, to that aspect will help our overall permit meeting the standards, right? So if we're able to do any of that, while it may be a loser now or in the long range, you know, it's something to consider, as there's another benefit, not just for performance, but also treatment and offsetting impacts.
And I think
I
that tying that into the project down Washington Street Extension is going to, one of the benefits of tying that in is not just the flooding, it's going to be the water quality benefits to treating it down there in the constructed wetlands.
Thank you.
So I just have a clarifying question about the rain guarded portions. When you were doing the models, you were just doing at sort of like existing grade now. You weren't doing if we were mounding areas that could hold more water. Is that correct?
I could jump in there. So what we did, or what Mitch and Ben and the team did, was they took for this initial run, they did a very simple maxing out of, if you went from the edge of the space, you went on a 3-to-1 slope down as low as you can get it while being above groundwater, what storage can we get? So we, from a design perspective, you know, with your direction today, our next step would be to say, okay, we want to not just make it a ditch, we're going to finesse the form a little bit to make it more attractive, to think about areas where we want plantings up a little higher. So the manipulation of the ground will reduce somewhat the capacity. That what you're seeing here is a maxed out capacity if you just took as much water as you can into these spaces. So we'll be able to do another model run once there's a refined design, you know, provided you want to continue to advance this study. Does that
So
answer your question, Leah?
That covers what has been said, I think. What Dwayne said. Pretty much, I think.
I had one additional question. My question is about predictions on water levels and groundwater modeling. And I just wanted a little bit of a refresher course on what's been done in this area and what the expectations are for, you know, low, medium, high sea level rise and impacts on groundwater, and or other potential impacts on groundwater. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, we've discussed short-term small benefits or short-term small benefits predicted. Of course, it's only a prediction, right? So we all know the limits of probabilities, but predicted to have an impact for 5 years? Are they predicted to have an impact for 2 years? Are they predicted to have an impact for 20 years? So I'm just based on groundwater levels, because it seems like that's one of the major things that could alter this.
I can talk about it in the short term, Joe, if you want to talk about it in the longer term. There's two main sources of data that we were working with. One was the model that Woods Hole Group made, which was based on the sea level, and I believe there's also a groundwater gauge somewhere on the island that was used to calibrate. Looks like that was right. The other thing was Ty and Bond did some actual groundwater borings within this region in a couple of different locations. One was in sort of this shark fin shaped area. One was in this senior center parking lot. And for the purposes of our modeling, we used the actual boring data and we took the worst case scenario, the highest number that they found anywhere in the boring logs. And that number actually differed by almost a foot from the Woods Hole Group predicted groundwater elevation at high tide. So there's definitely some difference there. The Woods Hole Group has predicted in the future higher sea level elevation, which would also increase groundwater. But it's a little unclear exactly. The groundwater may be higher than we think it is already, given the borings.
So
Joe, I
that's
don't know if you
what
have anything to add to that.
Okay, so the 1 foot was a 1 foot increase.
So these may not be the perfect numbers. I believe what Woods Hole Group found was a average present day groundwater elevation in this area of 1.4 plus or minus 0.2 feet for low and high tide respectively. What we found at one particular boring site was a elevation at 2.7, so 0.9 feet higher.
Yeah, I'll just say that I don't have the numbers at my fingertips. Thanks, Mitch, for pulling some. What we did was sort of a back of the envelope calculation based on that one island gauge. So it's not, it's not perfect, but it did indicate that over time we would expect more and more areas of high groundwater and even breakout. I think it wasn't even too far into the future with, arguably higher levels of sea level rise. But if we are already observing areas where there isn't a whole lot of storage due to high groundwater, then we would expect, increasing sort of onset of lower storage. Thanks.
So yeah, the groundwater that we found, well, Ty and Bond found in their borings is more in line with the 2030 model numbers.
More in line with what Dwayne is talking about. The water's right there, all right?
Right.
I showed it to you, man.
Yeah, so I know. So that's what I'm saying. So you guys, what you found was it's interesting. When you took the borings, they confirm what Dwayne is saying, not what was always, not what we thought. It's a lot different, a little bit different.
I think they said 8 inches down one meeting I was there.
Yeah.
And inside of Francis Street. You know what is crazy interesting, if I dig down on the east side of Washington Street, on the sand side, the water's down 30 inches. You get groundwater down about 30 inches, and that goes up and down with the tides. But the water on the other side of Washington Street, it's fresh water, and it doesn't go up and down with the tides.
It's all being held in, it's coming down.
It's getting stuck on Washington Street somehow, I don't know how.
Yeah.
I think One thing I might point out, and I'll defer to Mitch and Ben and maybe even Todd on this. As you get even higher tides into the future, then you'll have more conditions in which even a small storm is going to flood the street. And if you have some storage that is available when you can't get it out into the harbor through the outfalls, then you will have some benefit.
Agree.
And
Yeah.
if you're talking about like long-term, usability for Washington Street, which has been our goal from the coastal side, then if you think about stormwater management for those increasingly frequent and common storms, then in my mind, there may be still some benefit here until you get to that pumping situation.
The boring locations, do we have monitoring wells installed there now that we
Yeah.
can
Question. We do?
access and start?
Where are they?
On
They're up
the land
Like the
bank.
bathroom, where is it?
it?
I don't know where they are either.
We should go for a tour
Are
down
they?
there.
The little thing with the, I know.
There's one
Okay.
right here,
Okay,
Yeah,
and then the other boring was here, and there was one in the parking lot, but I
Oh,
think just
beautiful.
this one has the monitor.
so there's
Okay.
a well, is it locked?
It's
Can I get
Is it locked,
access
Rachel?
to it and start monitoring?
Liz.
You can talk to Liz about
Yeah.
monitoring it. How about you do that because she's doing it.
Oh, she is doing it?
that would be great. So we have our own.
Okay, so
Yeah.
can
We can
we?
save money, we don't.
You should just talk to Liz about it.
Okay.
I do want to add two things since we're talking about groundwater. The town is underway with a groundwater nutrient loading model or project right now. And so, and that's for Nantucket Harbor. So we'll get some information from that. I'm also working on, for the Easy Street project, is trying to create a model for groundwater table rise within the downtown area. So that's,
That's what I was asking.
yes, so
What data are you using?
that's what we're trying to figure out, because there's not a lot of historic data other than the USGS data from 1990. And there aren't a ton of wells that actually have data. So
Leah,
working,
Are those with the water company? Because they have
Mark-
wells, too. Mark has some wells.
he has some wells, but not in the downtown area. And he was working on a model, but all of the funding, that's been paused because all the funding is going towards PFAS. So he wasn't sure of the timeline when that model would start up. And his model's island-wide. This would be more specific for the downtown area.
Last comment from me, I promise. On this. Well, because it's relevant to this whole, now we're in a kind of a more of a simpler way of talking about the water issues instead of stuff that's out of control, like crazy expensive and down the road. Raising the street, I want to get back to that again. So using Easy Street, I just can't not talk about Easy Street because that's the street where the water starts coming in. And all the videos get put online and we're all gonna go underwater and everybody's gonna have to evacuate. I hate listening to it, but that's what gets said. So that catch basin, if we raised Easy Street and raise that catch basin in front of that building to the normal level it needs to be to catch water in a normal rain, would the water not come up out of there? It would change the way that street floods. Because the water's not coming over the Easy Street bulkhead, it's pushing up from what do they call those things? The flapper things, right? The little thing.
Oh,
In the bathroom.
Yeah.
Tide gates?
Yeah.
Do they have tide gates on them?
They do, but I don't think they work, God, like the way that look on a video.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, there's many different ones, and if those aren't performing, then they should be replaced out. And, there's check valves that we use. There's duck bills. Depending on what's used. If it's not working, then it's not. It either needs to be cleaned out or it's not the appropriate tide gate.
But if Todd saw that catch basin, and he would understand why the water's coming out of that one, because it's lower than all the others.
Yeah.
But the weight of the ocean is pushing the water out of that catch basin. My point is, back to our project street, if Washington Street, we did bring this up before. If Washington Street was raised, and let's just say 2 inches, I know I'm getting crazy because that's probably all it really needs to be. How much would that change the water issue? It would make it better because the water would be higher on the street than where it's going. Is that similar? Am I wrong about
We're
that?
talking about two flooding.
I know it's a different kind of
It's
flood.
a harbor versus the stormwater.
Yeah,
The stormwater not being able to get out because of the higher harbor elevation. You're talking about the harbor flooding coming into the system too. It's really complicated.
when you have a
Yeah,
moon
well,
tide and it rains, we're gonna have no, the water really can't go anywhere.
And
Okay,
that's why, you know, we're gonna be looking at pumping.
pumping with maintenance and motors and
Yeah.
all
Well, the same
that.
thing on Easy Street, it's, the water's dry, that's a low point, so it's running down from everywhere. And probably,
That's
even
another
if
part of
we,
it.
even if we fix the
Yeah.
gate so that the water's not coming up,
Yeah.
it's still gonna be the low point that's catching it.
It's a huge drainage area,
Yeah.
like drains of India Street all the way up.
Yeah.
And
Academy Hill down.
Yeah.
I think
But when the catch basin's low, that can be fixed. But that's not like some big secret scientific project. That is low there. The street is also kind of put down over time a little bit in certain spots. When it rains, we should be running out there and looking at all of those spots. Just look at them, like on, it's on, I'm not saying you don't. I'm saying, like, whatever, data, pictures, showing where, like South Beach.
We meet down at Easy.
South
Street
Beach
every
Street
time
doesn't
there's a
flood,
flood.
certain sections of South Beach Street floods.
I'm going to call on Joe because I know he has to jump at 12. So, and then Todd, I know you're patiently waiting too.
Just before I go, I'll just mention that there is under development I want to say statewide, but unfortunately it's not, a groundwater model that a researcher at UMass Amherst has been working on. Unfortunately, the islands were not funded. So that part is on pause, but it's looking at future sea level rise and its effect on groundwater levels throughout the state. It's pretty sophisticated and high level. Highly advanced.
They're too rich to include.
That seems so wrong.
So can you send a link
surprising.
to that or more info in an email?
Yeah, I gave it to Laura. I don't think I have access to the chat.
I can put it in the chat, but we can also send it by email.
But
Thank you.
what I was saying to Laura offline was that maybe he could be a useful point of contact, Leah, if you're looking at those issues island wide. He may have started to dig into it already.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Todd, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, to go on to Joe's point, I wanted to ask a question, but Joe had made a comment about any additional storage during the near term with the tidal influence, and what we've done in other situations if the outfalls work, and this is more for Mitch and Ben. Have we looked at any lined underground chambers to just provide some storage capacity with the elevated groundwater?
Yes.
We did look at this option last year. Yeah.
Okay.
And we were asked to not explore the underground options, both because of cost and maintenance considerations.
Okay.
Yeah.
We may have storage capacity in the town parking lot if and when that ever's done, which is just down the street a little bit.
Yeah.
I hope we don't.
It's low
They're
too.
they're talking about spending $1 million or $2 million to fix the lot, and I'm like, well, are we gonna do this stuff first? Yeah, so anyway, we'll see.
I drove another spike in the other day that's sticking up 3 inches, no one cares about. I'm telling you, over at EJ's, same thing. A wooden curtain. What do you think happened to the spike?
So I think I'm sorry, I can't tell if someone's talking.
Okay, these are sidebar.
Okay, no problem. I think in terms of next steps, our intention, our kind of project as it's scoped out is to document to schematic design to 30%, you know, the best practices in these areas for the rain gardens. And when we cost it, we can chunk them out so that you have a sense of what the investment would be in each of the Meter Street area, the, you know, the corner shark fin, as Mitch was calling it, and then the Saltmarsh Center parking lot areas. We're happy to proceed with that. We think that there's some, you know, definitely some near-term benefit, but we'll, you know, we'll look for the group's direction on how we take this forward, given that it's, you know, not a long-term home run by any means.
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So we had on here that December 12th would be the next meeting, but we're wondering if we could cancel that and move it to December 19th. That work for people's schedule?
That's 100 years from now.
Okay.
Fine.
As long as you're
I
asking.
see.
And you're pretty good at that, so
Yeah.
yes.
Alrighty, so the next meeting will be December 19th at 11 a.m.
Sorry about my talking so much, but I think this water issue, keeping it separated from the other part is really important. But not in a way where it doesn't look like we're paying any attention to it, but more of like, this is a separate issue that would be happening when we're doing the beach. That's a sort of a, I think that's a way to sell this a little better and have less questions,
Well, once we get the,
you know?
once we get the estimates on cost, we'll know. My guess is we're not gonna do the parking lot, and we might do the shark fin and not the other, but we'll see what
And
the
the
costs
other,
are.
and also
Yeah.
too, you gotta remember Mark and National Grid, I mean, there has to be explanations of what's going on the Washington Street that isn't done yet. There's gonna be some more work that has to happen, I'm assuming. I know they've done a ton of stuff, that's what the phase one was, but there's gotta be water upgrades. I guarantee you the stuff that's gonna have to dig that street up for something in the near future. And if we put the wires on the ground, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff to talk about. I'm just saying, raising the street, we should know what that will do. Forget about this project, that we should be talking about that in a different way. What that will do to benefit the flooding. Even if we weren't doing this.
But not, this project is a near-term solution so that we don't have to raise the road.
Yeah, no, I know,
Right,
I
like we
know,
could-
I know that.
But that's very-
I understand that, I'm saying that will make a difference. When the day comes that road is dug up for real this time and actually fixed, or whatever we end up doing with stuff that's under the street that needs to get upgraded. I know there's stuff that has to get done, I just can't give you that.
So you're saying when they dig up the road to add a couple inches of tar?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about, that's all I'm talking about.
Okay.
It's like simple stuff.
Just to see, what the-
Not to
and see what the impact of that is.
elevate it.
No, just to raise
Which
it
is what we
enough
would do.
that makes a difference with, I mean. With the dated, the normal flooding that happens that, you know. That can be mitigated by just simply raising the street.
We should
when it comes
probably
down
wrap
to
this
that.
up so we can
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah,
I think we can call this good. So,
sorry, Laura.
no problem.
No, you're good.
All right, so we have a plan for our next meeting. I think we've addressed additional questions, concerns on future agenda items. And I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, and Malcolm's online, so I'm gonna take roll call vote. Alan?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
John? Matt? And Malcolm?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks,
everyone.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks
We'll see you
all.
soon.